What's up, YouTube? It's Dominique again. I know it's been like a hot minute. I think it's almost been a year. Has it been almost a year? No, because when I last did my last video, I was definitely in shorts. So we're in February now, so it had been like during the spring or whatever. But anywho, welcome back to my channel. I know it at least has been a minute. If you all know me, y'all know I am very like up and down when it comes to this YouTube stuff. I post here and there whenever I can get it in. It's kind of hard just kind of, just being in that mental mindset to where you want to first create a video, then edit the video and kind of feel comfortable or confident to put it up for the world to see. But here I am, and y'all, look at this makeup I did this morning. Girl got a fresh fade going on. All right, so anywho, for today's video, I just kind of want to catch up for a bit, just telling y'all what I've been up to for these past few months. 2022 was definitely a year. I have like 3 different W-2s from 2022. So it's all, I do not like tax season, y'all, because I always get kind of nervous if I'm going to owe a lot or whatever. And then I have to like put all these different W-2s in. So yeah, so 2022, I had like 3 different jobs, hence the 3 different W-2s I'm getting. I became single, so I'm still trying to navigate being a single woman. And then on top of that, I'm in the military now. So yeah, here we are, welcome back. So if you looked at my last video, you would know that I did travel social work for a bit. It was like the best experience ever. It's kind of what I needed after being burnt out as a therapist and whatnot. So I loved being a travel social worker. Again, if you have any questions about getting into travel social work, what to do, how to navigate and whatnot, just shoot me a message. I'll like talk your ear off about travel social work. It is really great money and it's a really great experience. And I think it just adds, more to our resume of what we can bring to the table whenever we do want to see kind of that, whether it's that long-term employment or just continue to do travel social work and whatnot. Best money ever. I will put that out there. It was like the best money I probably will ever make in my life, unless, I stay in social work for 20 years or so and make some good money. But still, y'all, getting weekly paychecks every freaking Friday, who can beat that, really? Who can beat that? All right, so back in 2020 is when I started exploring joining the military as a social worker. It's always been the dream job of mine. So even when I started my MSW program, the end goal was to be an active duty social worker. I didn't know what branch at the time, but that was the end goal. So when I became licensed, because of course, if you want to get commissioned as a social worker for any branch in the military, you have to be a licensed clinical social worker. So I obtained that in 2020, finished all my supervision hours, took and passed that test with the A+++. And I began talking to Navy and Army recruiters. I wasn't like geared towards the Air Force. I don't know. I'm a big energy and spiritual person, and I felt spiritually I was not inclined to join the Air Force. I did briefly speak with a recruiter and he sent me some stuff, but I just wasn't interested. So I did not pursue the Air Force for that reason. I think I more so pursue the Navy just because I come from a Navy family. My dad in 2020 retired from the Navy after 35 years of service. And I think it'll just be cool to kind of pass on that, little tradition or create a tradition or so. But I think that's why more so I explored the Navy. And finally, there's the Army, right? And spiritually, the energy for the Army was way more than it was for the Navy, even though that Navy has that sort of family connection for me. I felt the Army would challenge me with my career trajectory, of course, but I also feel like it'll just challenge me as an individual person, because when you join like any of these branches and whatnot, you're either a sailor, soldier, or airman first, then you're an officer second, and then, you're a social worker, right? So I felt like as an individual, like back in 2020, I was maybe like 20, I was about 28 years old back in 2020. No, I was 27. Anyways, I was in my late 20s, let's go with that. And I just felt like at that time, there's still something more I kind of want out of life in addition to the career, but also continue to grow as a person and be challenged. So that's why I was spiritually connected with the army, because I felt like when people think of the army, they think like tough shit, right? And I kind of want that. I want to be like a tougher individual and whatnot. And just, I feel like as I'm navigating through life, it'll just keep me more disciplined, just more aware, and just, I don't know, Dominique 2.0, I guess. I don't know where I'm going. But and I really like the recruiter as well. He was a really great recruiter. The Navy recruiter that I had, he was just not invested, I would say. The Army recruiter was invested. And I think, part of that is, they need the people, but he knew his stuff. He was on top of his stuff. And he was a really good recruiter to work with. I wasn't impressed with the Navy guy. And so I think that's also why I pursued the Army more than the Navy, because recruitment matters. If you're going to be a terrible recruiter, don't expect to have all these candidates lined up to see you at the door, just, sign your name on the dotted line. It is what it is. But if you are interested in joining the military with whatever branch of service as a social worker, you need to first, A, have your MSW, B, be licensed. Now, let me stop at the be licensed part. So we have in the Army what's called the SWIP program, Social Work Internship Program is what it stands for, the acronym. And what that entails is if you're already a person who has their degree, the Army will, pay for you to basically get your supervision. Within the Army, you're commissioned as an officer, and then for those next 2 years, you're kind of working on that supervision. So, of course, being supervised under a licensed clinical social worker, and you're at these specific sites to achieve that supervision. So they have them in like Texas, Oklahoma, Hawaii, I believe in Germany. Don't quote me on the Germany though. I want to say DC as well. Don't quote me on these. I know for sure, for a fact, Texas, Oklahoma, Hawaii. But it's like a whole list of SWIP sites where you can, get your hours and whatnot, and still, you're commissioned in the Army as a social worker. You're just trying to get the supervision, and then once you get your license and whatnot and can practice independently, then you'll be able to start your career as a behavioral health officer. So where you're not really under anybody's supervision, you're practicing independently, right? So there's that way. And then let's say if you don't have your degree, but you're interested in joining the Army as a social worker, they do have a joint agreement with University of Kentucky to where you apply through the school. You had to go through an Army healthcare recruiter to get into the school and whatnot, and mission that way as well. So if you do have, let's say you're a previous general officer in the Army and then decide to apply for this program and get in and whatnot, you probably could also hold on to your rank as well. If you're like brand new into the officer role, you'll start out as a second lieutenant. So there's that way. And then I know for the Air Force and the Navy, they do have different what they call fellowship programs. It's the same thing as with the Army SWIP. You're commissioned as a Navy social worker or a Air Force social worker. You're under supervision, and then once you become licensed and all of that, you practice independently too. So they do have some programs. I know for the Navy, they're very selective. It's very competitive. I would say all these different programs are competitive. It really depends on how many slots, because you're competing it could be for 5 slots out of the whole entire country. So it's very competitive and whatnot. So for that reason alone is why I took the kind of my way route. So I, of course, just went through school on my own, went through the whole supervision licensure process on my own, and then I started exploring, getting commissioned. So I know you're all probably thinking you started this in 2020, it's now 2023, or you started your training in 2022. Why did it take so long? Well, y'all, I would tell y'all this, and this is a good lesson for anybody, no matter what age. Don't ever hold off on your dreams because of a man. And I'm just gonna leave it at that. That's a big reason why it took forever, because God bless my recruiter. He was so wonderful. But I kind of like took a pause on like getting commission because I thought like me and this guy was going to get married and whatnot and ride off to the sunset and end up that way. But here we are. Anyways, the overall goal has been achieved. I got in. I am a commissioned first lieutenant behavioral health officer in the Army now. Yes, yes, yes. So remember, I started this process in 2020. I told my recruiter that I'm gonna take a pause, right? And then like a year went by and I'm like, I need to do this. Because at that time, me and the boy, we was done a web blocked, delete, everything. So I was like, I need to like go for my dreams. Like this is the reason why I got into social work in the first place. I want to be a military social worker, not a civilian. I want to be like freaking embedded into the military culture and whatnot, but also be a social worker. So God bless my recruiter. He took me serious still. And we resubmitted my package the end of 2021. And then the board convened this is for social work, January 2022. It was like the second or third week. And then by the end of the month, I got word that I got selected. Yay! So I knew it was gonna be a while between selection and when I kind of leave for training. Because I was like, y'all, I was hella burned out being a therapist. It was just a lot. So that's how I got into travel social work in the first place. If you watch my last video, I wanted to do something that's temporary, fun. I can make some good money, some good cash, because homegirl, I am single. I need to pay my freaking bills. I can't be waiting for no guy to pay my bills or whatnot, so I gotta do it on my own. Like, choose this life, but the life chose me, so that's why I got into travel social work in the first place. Like, I need to figure out something, because I was not going to just sit around, continue to be miserable at my job until this thing with the Army takes off. So that's why I got into travel social work. And so when you're like newly commissioned or whatever, at the end of the day, like the Congress and president has to approve your commission. So you can imagine that takes a hot minute to get approved. But anywho, I was able to sign my contract in June. Yes, because it was the day after my birthday, June 5th. It's my birthday, y'all. I'm gonna be 30. June 5th is my birthday, so I signed it June 6th. And then by the end of the month, I think it was maybe like a few days later, I get a call from my branch manager. So the person like in charge of like where the hell they're gonna place you at and whatnot. And he's like, give me your wish list. So I gave my wish list. It was mostly all Army posts in Virginia and whatnot. And then he was like, yeah, you're gonna go here in Germany. I was like, oh, cool. In my head, I kind of built up this expectation. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna live like this bougie influencer lifestyle in Germany, Europe, black girl in Europe, travel and whatnot. That's all I kept thinking, right? And so maybe like a couple weeks later, I get a phone call from him. He's like, you're not going to Germany. I was like, what? Like, okay, well, where I'm gonna go? It's like part of my, anywhere on my wish list or whatever. He's like, no, we're gonna send you to Oklahoma. I was like, Oklahoma? I was so confused. I'm like, what? They're like, yeah, they really need a behavioral health officer down there. And I was like, what? Oklahoma? Like, Oklahoma wasn't even my radar. And he was like, you're going to Oklahoma. And I kid you not, y'all, like maybe 10 minutes later, I got my hard copy orders that I'm going to Oklahoma. So I'm in Oklahoma. Yes. For training in September. So since I'm brand new into the Army and whatnot, they send those officers to what's called direct commission course. Because there's several ways you can assess as an officer. You can go through ROTC, you can go through officer candidate school, and you can go to West Point and whatnot. And the Army also has what's called the Green and Gold program, to where if you were prior service enlisted and you go to college, get your degree, part of that program, and you're an officer, or you start out as a second lieutenant, the gold bar, hence green and gold. But anywho, and then there's direct commission. So of course I'm a direct commission. And so because in the past, folks who direct commission don't have any knowledge or basis of kind of like this military culture and life and whatnot, that's why they started this direct commission course. So that's it's like a crash course of being in the Army. So they taught us, you know, how to use an N4. Yes, how to use an N4, land navigation, history and whatnot, basic customs and traditions and all of that, how to wear a uniform, how to march and whatnot. So I was 4 weeks, so I did that. And then when you're a brand new officer in the military, regardless of how you assess, you had to go what's called Basic Officer Leadership School. So for me, since I'm part of like what's called AMED, so it's like the medical corps of the Army, I went to Fort Sam Houston to get that training done. So that was like 2.5 months. And it continued, like the direct commission course set me up for basic officer leadership course, just to kind of know what to expect. So again, kind of still teaching us how to leadership stuff and whatnot. We got to do a 3-week field exercise too. That was interesting. Sleeping in tents, and it was hella cold too. I remember we were doing like the CBRN training, so chemical gas, whatever, and we were just outside, and I could not feel my feet. I couldn't feel my hands. It was just so cold. I was so miserable. I was like rethinking life. I was like, why am I here? And then the little voice inside me keeps saying, Dominique, you're here because you want to be challenged as a person. So yes. So that was an experience. And then we had to do all these different tactical missions and whatnot. Y'all, I was like, this is a lot. But I'm glad I went through that whole process because, again, I grew as an individual, and I'm going to continue to grow as an individual as I do these things more often in my respective units as a behavioral health officer. So, and then after basic officer leadership course for 2.5 months is when I went to my first duty station. So here I am now in Oklahoma. I am the only behavioral health officer in my unit, so which is kind of nice to kind of have that little bit of autonomy and whatnot. I'm excited what's to come in the future in terms of my military career. I do plan on making a career out of it. I want to do the full 20 plus. I want to be a full bird status. I want to work in the Pentagon. Like, I have like these pretty high goals and ambitions for myself. So that's where I pretty much am. So again, guys, I want to thank you for tuning in. If you have any questions, if you want to know more about the whole commission process into the military, or just have specific questions about my journey, you know, find me on Instagram, shoot me a message on YouTube, whatever. I'll be more than happy to respond back. And yeah, till next time, y'all. Bye.